Welcome back, audience. Hope you're doing good. I'm just gonna record another video real quick. And in this video, I want to talk about the concept of memories and the nature of memories and the nature of consciousness. There's many ways there's many ways to look at life, and what it is, but if you were to look at fundamental level of what that is, and by making these videos lately and doing the alchemy in real time with you and watching what's going on as I speak, I tend to move closer and closer to that, what's really going on. And I suppose if you're still watching my videos, you do too. So I want to talk about this idea of memory. What is memory? And if we define a memory in a specific way as what a memory is, it really expands the meaning of memory. For example, you're going through life and something happens and you get hurt. Because you've experienced something that led you to the hurt. Now, in that moment, if you were to go, you may have negative emotions, everything. And if you were to go from those as first thoughts, negative thoughts, that trigger happens, pow, negative thoughts start happening. If you start observing these thoughts, you become aware of the emotions. Start observing these emotions, you become aware of the primordial sensation or feeling that caused that emotion. And as you continue watching that source of it, that root, and if you don't stray away and just keep watching it, eventually that thing that you're watching and you disappears. So what the fuck was that all about? Well, what was it about? It was this first of all, a realization of how everything is, you can call it experience or memory. The fascinating part is that the thought is folded emotion, right? The folded emotion is the feeling, and then the folded feeling is primordial essence of being, which is peace and bliss. And then you may say, why I've experienced that was based on the hurt and not primordial source? Well, because presumably we selected to play this game like that. And what we're experiencing are memories. But if we are experiencing something, we're experiencing the memory that if it leads to hurt, which means we have built it from that hurt. I mean, you may not be aware of it or remember it, and you say like, well, I didn't create this experience. And you weren't, you didn't create consciously, or at least throughout this life as you see it, um, as such. But it turns out, or it appears to be so, that we've playing this game, we're starting with these distortions that create these memories that are leading to back to that, you know, distortion. And you can see some people kind of living just at the thought level and never really look at the emotions, and it becomes blaming other people, but the source of it is still there. So they keep repeating the same memory over and over again. Then some people become aware of emotions, and that may be better, but they still living in an emotional and repeating that memory over and over again on an emotional level. And only when you become aware of the root source of it, and when there's this dissolution of that root source of it, only at that moment that memory is gone. And now, because you are touching the source, which has the basis of peace and bliss, from there might be another folding happening, which would be a creation of memory that you always wanted to enjoy, and that negative memory only brought you to this point so you could experience it. If an experience of that hurt almost like it was necessary to go through all the way, because this way you found out what you really are and what you really desire. Without it, you wouldn't know. And so from there, from that soup of everything, now you can have another primordial feeling being born. The source folded and it created primordial feeling or spirit, and that feels like, let's say, being loved. Then that folded again and created some sort of emotions, what we call positive emotions of joy. Now that folded again and it created thoughts, which is you dreaming or seeing what that is in some sort of form in your imagination. And this is where the creation of that memory is done, and then it's coming into the world of sensations, and then you finally can experience it, that memory again, but this time the way a fulfillment of your desire. Okay, and so by observation of this process, one can look at it and say, wow, so we're just basically these experiences, these memories. What are these memories? We start off with something that is not ideal. Every time we alchemize that, we're moving closer to the ideal and we create a new memory. And so it looks like we are these memory creators. And I know that people in more like from the, I don't know if I even should talk about people, but people do speak of memory in such a way that it's kind of almost maybe even negative. But they say, well, there is no memory, for example. Yes, ultimately there is no memory. It's just happening that something's not yet folded. But out that fabric that is not yet folded, memories are being folded. Out of that infinite, temporal is being born. And without temporal, there is no experience. You cannot be attached to the infinite and you cannot be attached to the temporal. You cannot say that there are no memories, because that's not ultimately true. More accurate to say, our fundamental state of being and our essence is that free of memory. But it appears that out of that infinity, memories are being born, and that memory is an experience, and we're living that memory. And that's all ever was and always will be, is creation of these memories. And someone said, um, this is as dear as a memory. And I heard that saying and I thought, how can it be something as dear as a memory? But now I see that because everything is a memory, everything is a memory. Anything temporal, anything to do with motion, movement, that is in a field of experiences, you experiencing something is a memory, is a bubble of memory. It's almost like there's the source, which is a soap water, and these bubbles popping out, and each of that bubble is a memory. Why do I say bubbles? It's because look around you. You are in the bubble. You're in a virtual bubble. These are sensations, which is something we call physical matter. Physical matter is a sensation. We name it as something solid, but it's just a sensation. The world of sensations. And then you have the world of thoughts, which imagination, and the world of feelings. Physical, astral, causal. And then of course the infinite. And so everything is this bubbling up of memories. That's why memory is not something that happened in the past. Memory is memory. Whether you imagine it in your imagination, that's memory. Whether you're remembering something that happened in your life, that's memory. Whether you're right now watching this video and watching that film reel going through, that's memory also. So when you look at everything as an experience of creating these memories, and you can argue that if this is indeed the case, then that negative memory experience leading to that root cause of it, the solution of that root cause of it now leads to the new positive experience, or the one that you always wanted, then you can say, well, where there's a free will. Now of course there's a free will is necessary for someone to even go back to the source and to actually play the game the way it's meant to be played. That the memory that you experience as negative, you got to go and dissolve it and pop with a new memory that is positive. So you can even say that maybe it's good to go through all these negative experiences so you can dissolve them, you can alchemize all of them and create the memory um, and you can say, so how, where are these memories stored? It appears that that fundamental essence of everything seems to already have every possible permutation of reality, which means that it all it already has all the memories. And then you may say, like, how do I choose these memories if I'm experiencing the memory that is leading to hurt, and behind that hurt I found out the fulfillment of my desire. So it seems that I have not really chosen it. It seems that me living life like that, just living through the experience all the way, and that experience changing into something beautiful and positive, another negative experience coming, living through it all the way, and that comes into something positive. And it seems that if the previous memory determines the next, the previous uh, incoherent memory determines next incoherent memory, then how are you choosing this? Because it seems that's already been chosen. And I think that at that level, that might have been, for example, uh, the desire of feeling loved is not my desire, is not your desire, it's just a desire. So everyone's just gonna go through to that experience of not feeling love, going through that dissolution of that hurt, and then experience of being loved. That's just going to happen. But how it's going to be shaped, what kind of form it's going to take, that is unique. Because the feeling of joy is not my feeling of joy. Um, so the feeling of joy is the feeling of joy. But then you can see the only way this the only specific that we excuse me the specific and variety that we experience is only later in the world of sensations, and that gives an illusion that everything is so different, but everything stems from the exact same thing. We share the source, we share these primordial feelings, we share emotions, and we even share the thoughts. The only thing that we do not share is the form of those thoughts, which just may be similar, but not exact. But everything else is the same. Isn't it weird? Well, if that's what we do, if we just live memories and create new ones, might as well make a hobby out of it. Because I have a feeling that if you live life in this manner, that the essence is just creation of these memories. think that's where would be the most enjoyment also, because that's the most accurate view of the reality. And as you see it, at no point there was this concept of collective entering into this picture. But that there's an appearance of collective. It appears that there is a collective. And that appearance seems to be a feature of the way these memories are being created. That there's something that, for example, your experience of this world may overlap with mine, because as I'm creating my memories and you are creating your memories, they have a certain type of overlap depending on the game we're playing, and this game may be called Life on Earth, you see. And because we selected this game, that's why our memories are also folded in a specific way, where the overlap creates an objective experience of the reality. But this really is just a memory, your subjective memory actually, made to match your subjective memory. And so that thing that makes your memory and my memory to overlap is, you can call that the game that we selected to play, which is another way of folding memory in a specific way, which creates this idea that we live on this planet Earth. But as you're creating your subjective memories and they're becoming better and better and better, the entire planet is changing too. Because as you can see, if collective is determined based on the quality of the memory that you personally created, and because it's intrinsically built into this, then it appears to be, as you are evolving and as you are polishing your gem, to so to speak, and creating these memories, those soul desires that you really want. At the same time, this gem called Earth also is polishing itself automatically. And so it seems that every subjective player of this game, as they evolve, the entire planet changes, and you cannot do anything externally. Which leads to the conclusion that any kind of change is an alchemical change. And through the process that I've described to you, that bubble, the solution of that bubble completely into the source and popping up the new one, which is more ideal. And as you can see, it has to be completely dissolved, where that hurt is no more. Because if you just go a little bit down this way into the world of emotions and thoughts, but you don't go all the way to dissolve that, the source, the root cause of that discomfort and therefore negative emotion, what happens is that you may be creating a new bubble from still discomfort, uncomfortable sensation, but for example, it may be revenge based, because you have not dissolved the hurt completely. You just made it that, for example, um, example, you, let's say you get hurt, and then now you want, based on a revenge, to show everybody that they were wrong, right? That's, you have not dealt with anything. You may go uh, create that even reality and imagine and manifest that you want to just rub it in, and prove that person that hurt you that you know that you're worthy or whatever, creating, because the hurt has not gone. It's just going to create an experience that perhaps will result in a short term dopamine jolt and continuation of that suffering, because it was the basis of it all. This is why anybody who manifests from revenge end up creating more hurt for others and therefore themselves. And so that's not alchemy. That is not the way. That is not how you play the game of life, even though you may be using those um, faculties of imagination. But if you have not done your alchemical work, what you will imagine will still stem from that root cause of hurt. And you will create some experience that perhaps everything will appear to be in your favor, and yet you're still suffering. Okay, I've talked about this before. And I'm not saying anything new here. Eckhart Tolle keeps on harping on this idea: manifest from the contentment and the fullness of life. And that's what he means is, whenever you dissolve all that pain, body, that hurt, as he calls it, from that essence, from that being, whatever comes up is going to be amazing. That's when when you have that feeling, then you can imagine what that feeling what kind of form it may take. And like when I say imagine, it's really a type of remembering. That's another thing. If everything is memory, then anything that you want, any desire that you have in life, it is about remembering. It's about remembering. And you remember first by dissolving that hurt into that soup of essence, the being, the infinite. And then from there, all possible memories exist. And from there, you pull that memory that you always wanted and you dream about it. And you enjoy it, and it will come to you. If something comes at you on your experience and you say it seemed to be fulfillment of my desire, but then again it led me to some state of hurt or whatever, the same process applies. Until you're happy with that memory that you created. You see, it's easy like that. There's no need to blame anybody, because your hurt created that experience. So yeah, happy game of life, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.